Hey guys, Ajax22 here, and had a kind of crazy idea the other day while in the shop, so I got started working on this. Had the idea for a top charging slick side AR15 with an integrated magwell, trigger guard that goes into the magwell, wood pistol grip, wood triangle forend with a scalloped top that allowed you to actually see a finned barrel underneath, like a finned heavy barrel all the way down, but with probably a dissipator length, like I think it's the 605 Colts that had that. You know, an A2 length stock, because I like an A2 length, but then use the Law tactical adapter to make it so it can fold for transport. Yeah, just sort of throwing some ideas out there. It's kind of nuts. And I'm going to use a AR180 muzzle brake because I have a whole bunch of those with the AR180 I'm working on. Or I should say rather the homemade version of the AR180 I'm working on. It's not actually an AR180. Yeah, so what we did, or I did, was to start with one of these 80% that has the integrated trigger guard, and I'm spacing on the manufacturer. It also had some stupid serrations in the front of the magwell. So milled it smooth, got rid of the gate, went with, you know, made it look rather like the old slab side, but left the you know, the thick reinforcement there, and just sort of ran with it. Got rid of the little detent marks that needs to be polished off. Got rid of, sorry, phone glitched. But we're going really old school, like prototype, you know, AR-15. Something that could have maybe been made, but not really. Had one of the Nodak top charging uppers and an old style Delta ring. Just kicking around. Kind of always wanted to make a 605 clone out of it, but didn't get around to it. Just couldn't justify it. The idea is I'm going to strip all the anodizing off of this, like we did with the Black Aces sawed-offs, and it'll be you know, real wood stocks, real wood forend, real wood pistol grip. You know, get rid of on the Law tactical. I'll probably wind up blending some of that so that the lines work better. Use like a flappy paddle wheel. Use a old profile gas tube so that it stands up nice and high, fully exposed. Yeah, if I could find a front sight base that didn't require a bend at all, that would be ideal. Just have it go straight. I'd like to keep that line. That would be pretty awesome, but it would require some customization, I think, and I'm not sure if that's actually worth the amount of work. But just gonna keep it real basic. If gonna go with the screw on the front end, because we didn't just mill off the little fence here. We got rid of the detent tube too. I'll probably leave a detent in the rear, but I'll try to get the dimpled one, make it look retro. I mean, I really want to go retro on all of this. You know, exposed aluminum retro. Probably media tumble everything, not polish. We'll use some oven cleaner to strip the anodizing. You know, wire it, scouring pad it, get the black off, and then we'll just have to tumble it, I guess. it's going to be a lot of intricate little stuff, and it's not going to be cheap. The set of wood from Ironwood is going to be at least 300 bucks, and then I have to modify it from there. So if I screw up those handguards, it gets more expensive. Barrel is going to be probably the least expensive part of this, honestly, because I can get unprofiled barrels that have a chamber cut in them, and just, you know, I'll go down, diagram it out. I might actually have Randall over at AR15 Barrels help me with that one. He is sort of the guru when it comes to AR15 stuff, so got to give him a props and a shout out, as they say. Probably an A2 butt plate. I would love it if we could do an M14 butt plate and then just have a different screw location, because that would be awesome. Have the M14 inspired. Oh, that's another thing we were thinking about. I might do a different type of safety. I didn't want to do a selector up here. I just don't like the way it affects the lines. So one thing I was thinking about was an M1 Grand style safety that's a slider, or maybe even actually just reuse a Mac 10 safety with maybe a little extender on it, but something that you know, basically just stick it underneath the trigger to prevent it from going down. Yeah, we milled her out to get rid of the detent, so we're not going to be running a detent in this. This would actually make for a pretty badass style of receiver, generally speaking. It's going to be very, very light, all things considered. There's a lot of aluminum missing out of it without any sort of dust compromising holes added. And you know, there's really no reason why the pistol grip couldn't be integrated into this. On the project I was working on a few years back to make a printable, like paper printable, paper laminate AR-15 lower, that was the general design. You know, we're going to have the pistol grip, we're going to leave the upper very rough and simple, and then very simple fire control pocket that makes it easier to put together, stronger, not as dependent upon thin little webs of aluminum to, or sorry, thin webs of paper in that case, to hold it together. If I had good TIG welding ability and the equipment to do so, I would probably get rid of the bolt catch on this. I've had mixed feelings on that, just because it is really useful, particularly if you don't have a safety. You know, you can just put the bolt catch on, and then when that's, you know, ready to go, smack it and have that sort of effectively be your safety. But I really would like the way this thing would look if it didn't have that. So again, mixed feelings. I'm gonna have to polish out the little markings, because they don't mean anything now. There is no safety. There will be no safety. But yeah, you gotta imagine the law block here, long tube out there with a wood piece, folds on the left, I believe. I hope it folds on the left, because if it folded on the right, that would, I mean, that's one more thing to take into consideration. It's going to be cool. I think if I had to, I don't really fully have the concept for what I'm doing here yet. I mean, the daydream was that, you know, after World War I, the balloon core was extremely deemed extremely useful, lasted through the Second World War in Korea, and wound up being like there in Vietnam, along with essentially if the people, instead of saying, oh, the M14 is the most wonderful thing ever, had said, hey, you know, this thing's uncontrollable in full auto. Hey, sorry about that. Had a phone call come in, and it lasted long enough that the lighting changed. So, yeah, back to it. Essentially, the idea would be that if there was an alternate timeline and the people who had, instead of selecting the M14, had gone with the M1 Grand, and the M1 Grand's semi-auto capability was deemed to be more effective, but they had some survey that said that, you know, aimed shots were better than suppressive fire in an infantry weapon. So they would remove the full auto capability of the rifle. So there would be no need for a selector to go, an auto selector. So there would be no need for designing for an auto sear. So there would be no need. I mean, it would have lent itself much more readily to the same manual of arms, or an adapted manual of arms from the M1 Grand. So you have this timeline where the balloon core is a thing, and I'm sticking with the balloon core because, you know, this is going to wind up being a fairly lightweight unit. Maybe this wouldn't be an infantry adopted rifle, but you'd need to have the ability to store it compactly. It wouldn't be, you know, something for close, you know, it's close quarters combat. You wouldn't be able to fire with the stock folded, but you would be able to, you know, fold it for storage. And I don't know 100%. Might want to skeletonize the stock, or you know, basically route out an empty void in it. I believe I've seen that done on these before. Yeah, so essentially an alternate timeline where this would exist as an early prototype, unknown model that would have been specially ordered for the for the balloon core. Hence the you know, the Thompson style finning on the barrel to, you know, maximize cooling. You know, the cutaway handguards, the wood would be a, you know, a relic of the plastic and alternate materials not really being trusted, but aluminum would still be there on the receiver as a you know, weight saving measure for an aircraft. And the infantry version of this would be fixed solid wood stock, fixed solid wood handguard, you know, probably a steel receiver. You know, not gonna, and then it would definitely have the, you know, that would be the way to do a proper glove trigger, the little rinky-dink fold out with the fragile tabs. Just, I still don't like that. I mean, if you've ever broken one up off while doing an assembly, ever, maybe when young and in the early days of people assembling their own stuff, I mean, you can sympathize. But that's sort of the general picture that I was going with when designing this. It's sort of a diesel punk-esque, you know, aesthetic moved into the 1960s. You know, it's airships existed, you know, and this would be the U.S. infantry weapon for the lighter than air corps, I guess. And then I don't have a good reason why it would be stripped of anodizing. I just think it would look way better, so that's where I'm at. If I can figure out how to do a high blue on the barrel, that might be something that happens. That, or it'll be parkerized, all the steel will be parked. Might do a chrome slick side bolt carrier. Got to track one down. I had one once upon a time. It disappeared. I don't know what's going on with it. But they get them for a couple $100, and you know, I mean, most of the parts for this thing are actually going to be fairly off the shelf. The custom lower and the slight modification to the folding block, and then the barrel and the handguards being modified are really the main two custom components. And then the butt plate, if that winds up being a thing, it could be kind of involved. Front sight base, if we decide it really needs to have a straight gas tube. But yeah, sort of a. I like the description of a diesel punk design, you know, moved into the 60s. That works for me. But yeah, so I guess the first step on this is, other than, you know, buying lots and lots of parts, is going to be spraying this down with the oven cleaner, stripping it, and then taking some pattern files and sanding blocks and just smoothing it out so that the little mill marks don't show up, and it looks, you know, like a proper piece of machinery here. That has them, you know, don't want it to look modified. Want it to look like it was intended to be that way from the beginning. And that should be pretty awesome, actually. A lot of little blending and alignment and adjusting. I mean, I don't want to use any materials on this, and I guess that's my reasoning for not wanting anodizing us. I don't want anything on this that isn't going to look better as it wears. I want it to, you know, if I drop this thing and it needs to be, you know, the wood breaks and it needs to be patched, that's fine. If, you know, the gets gouges in it, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. You know, pure, done correctly, a pure thing should just, you know, show its life, but not look shabby, in my opinion. That's one of the reasons why a lot of the old war rifles are just so amazing when you finally see them. You know, they've been out there, they've lived, they've got honest, you know, wear and holster wear, and, you know, here's where the sling, you know, scratched it up, and here's the point where he threw it over his shoulder and it chewed up the stock on the butt of his pistol. You know, that kind of thing, that's beautiful. You know, scratches in the anodizing, it can look good, but by and large it just does not look as good as the bare metal. And yeah, no plastic on this gun at all. Haven't figured out what I want to do as far as fire control group. Probably going to try to get as retro parts as I can, and you know, if I can find a retro stock buffer, spring. I mean, I don't want to go any later than A1, and if I can go, you know, 16 or earlier, that's where I'm at. I mean, I want to probably use a 20 round, well, you know, 10 round in California, but 20 round Air Force contract 222 Remington mag, if I can find it. Maybe a waffle mag. I mean, you know, taking it way back here. The first, you know, AR-15s that were adopted into service were Air Force contract, you know, private purchase. Well, not private purchase, but a separate order. So this would make sense, because it would still be, you know, in keeping with that. Anyway, this is rambling pretty good at this point, so I'm gonna get back to doing work that I get paid to do, and hopefully the next video you see from me on this one will be it getting, I'll show you how it gets stripped, and you know, how to make it all shiny. That'll be fun. Anyway, have a good one.